Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. It's 2023 finally, and January GPU prices are totally insane. We've got the RTX 4070 Ti launch, and it's a total disaster for NVIDIA. We'll go through both the market reaction and what I think about that GPU, including whether you should buy it. We'll talk more about upcoming GPU launches, 4070, 4060, 4050. We'll also cover the best price to performance GPU, as we always do in January if you need one right now, as well as whether you should buy now or wait. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like, because it makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. Let's jump into what else, current pricing, of course, and we're actually just gonna jump straight into the RTX 4070 Ti because as I'm filming this, it launched about 10 days ago. I'll tell you a little bit more about what I think about the card, whether or not you should buy it later in the video, but let's go to the market reaction because it's brutal, absolutely brutal for NVIDIA. As you can see, in January, you can pick one up for the MSRP $799. What's going on, Jason? I thought the GPUs typically completely sold out when they first launched for at least a month, possibly 2 or 3 months. Look at the RTX 4090, you still can't get one. Look at the RX 7900 XTX. Well, I'll tell you, let's look at Newegg right now in the US. Look at all these 4070 Ti's that are available right now. You can order one, you can buy one, and even on launch day, $829 models are still available. Only the $799 ones sold out, and only for a very brief period of time. They're mostly back in stock except for the Asus Tough ones. That is totally insane. Even when people were saying, oh, Jason, the RTX 4080 is not selling. It was selling in the US. It completely sold out. In the US, it sold out for over a month. Yes, I know some folks were saying, oh, look, it's in stock, but those were third-party sellers. They were essentially scalpers, were not real retailers. And it took a while for it to actually come back into retail stock in the US. I know it was available globally, other places, but it did sell out in the US, the 4080 did. The 4070 Ti never sold out. I think NVIDIA has massively overestimated the number of people out there who are willing to pay $800 or more for a GPU because they now have 3 SKUs, 3 different GPUs that cost $800 or more, which is totally bonkers to me. That's how far the GPU market has gone. Remember, NVIDIA designed these GPUs when the whole market was crazy because GPU miners were buying up all the cards, not gamers. GPU miners were buying up all the cards, and it didn't matter what gamers did because GPU miners were buying them all up, whether or not gamers were buying them, and they were paying top dollar. That's gone now. Ethereum went to proof of stake. GPU mining is dead. NVIDIA has to go back to its actual customer base, which is gamers, and gamers are not buying this crap. And I think that's a huge, possibly huge turning point in the GPU market. Let's take a look at the rest of the RTX 40 series lineup, starting with the 4080. Price is down in January to $1,199, which is the MSRP. It's a stupid MSRP, but it is the MSRP. It's down 10%. December, most of them were sold out. That's when they started to come back into stock. As you can see here, Newegg, we've got a couple of models, a PNY, a Gigabyte model at $1199, another PNY that's the OC model, pretty close, about 30 bucks away. And then we've got kind of all the other models in there. Now, speaking of the RTX 4090, the bad news is that it's still relatively hard to find at retail, but it is getting easier. So I pulled an eBay price of $1,990 right now for the RTX 4090 if you want one on the buy it now format. However, I am seeing this card come into stock, and I've tweeted this out over a number of days. In fact, I just hit refresh on Newegg and 2 models popped up here, the Gigabyte Gaming 4090 and then the Asus Tough OC model. $1,709 and $1,819 at Newegg from actual Newegg selling it. So they are pulsing these in. Now I have been tweeting them out as we've seen them. We saw the Gigabyte Gaming OC yesterday as well. We also saw the MSI Supreme. This might be the end of 4090 scalping as we know it. That would drop the price of the 4090 about $300 to $400. If we look at the average sale price and numbers sold on eBay, the sales have been pretty steady. The average price is of everybody paying for about $2,050, not much higher. You can find buy it now ones for a little bit cheaper that look like reputable listings. So the prices kind of bounced around quite a bit. That being said, it looks like it might be the end of GPU scalpers for the 4090. Hugely expensive GPU, but it would be a welcome sight to kick scalpers out of the equation. Let's quickly go through the rest of the RTX 3000 series. Not a lot of changes, but a couple of important ones. The first is obviously the 3090 Ti, the 3080 Ti. They completely sold out. They continue to be completely sold out. It's a big question mark whether we'll ever see any more of those GPUs come back into stock at a reasonable price. Obviously, no one's going to pay $1,330 for a 3090 when you can go out and get a 4080 for that same money, almost a 4090 for that same money. These are generally like third-party, kind of almost scalperish listings that have just been left over from the big GPU run, and these cards have effectively sold out. The cards that haven't sold out necessarily is the 3070. I was surprised to find it for $499. You can actually get it of all places at Walmart right now. It's a PNY version. It's actually a pretty good card. $499. This is a good price. I'll leave a link to this one down in the video description. If you've been desperate to get a 3070 for a decent-ish price, there you go. That being said, these appear to be kind of fewer and farther between. If you look at Newegg right now, the cheapest next one is $569 for the Asus Dual, and then boom, you just got the Noctua version, and then literally everything's out of stock, and they've in fact even removed a lot of the listings from Newegg. That to me says they don't intend to get many of these back in stock. So if you wanted a 3070, yeah, now would probably be your time. That being said, we'll talk about whether or not you should buy one of these now or you should wait later in the video. 3060 Ti's, hovering around that $399, that $400 price point. But again, just like with the 3070 Ti's, that's a Zotac model. Not everybody wants a Zotac. I get a lot of comments every time I bring up Zotac model cards down in the comments. Guys, if you don't want a Zotac model, you're going to end up paying more like $450 for a 3060 Ti. That's just the going rate for it right now. It's not clear to me how many more of these GPUs they have to sell, but a lot of the listings are still in stock. It's just that NVIDIA did not cut their prices come hell or high water, basically. And then for 3060s, $353. Remember, do not buy the 8GB 3060. It's a piece of trash. It's 25% less performance. They just released it about a month or so ago. They kind of stealth released it. Don't get suckered into buying it by accident. You want to go ahead and buy a 12GB one. If you use the link down in the video description that I provide, I filter out the 8GB one so you won't make that mistake. $350-ish is what you're going to get. Again, a Zotac model. If you want something more like an MSI model, then it's $370. It's more like $390 going up into the near $400 range. For a 3060 right now, that is, to me, a little bit bonkers. Again, we'll talk about the best price to performance GPUs later in the video. And then rounding it out, cards I don't recommend right now, but there 3050, essentially the same price. 2060 is up a little bit. Looks like 2060s are probably going to completely run out of stock. 1660 Ti, 1660 Super, hang in there, $229. Again, these are not cards that I necessarily recommend to anybody unless you absolutely have to have NVIDIA and you only have about $200. Even then, there are used options for that. Really quick interlude before we get to the AMD GPU pricing. Intel A750, A770, both down about 5 to 8%. It looks like not a lot of people are buying these GPUs. They are actually in stock. I'm surprised. I thought they may not even make enough of them, but clearly they did, or demand is even lower than I thought it was. They're below their MSRP right now. I will say with driver updates recently, I have gotten to a point where I would consider these GPUs as long as you're willing to live with a couple of bugs. I don't think they're game breaking anymore. I don't think they're the broken product that they were at launch. So you could consider them. And of course, we will add them into our price to performance spreadsheet at the end of the video. So we're actually going to race through these because not a lot has changed, but the 7900 XTX kind of highlights the changes. You can see down 22%. You can now find it for about $1,174 either on eBay or on Amazon, which is basically a scalper, right? Here it is right here. And look at the shipped by and sold by Icy Lol. If that's not a scalper name, I don't know. It is Icy LOL. Oh my God. If you want to jump over to eBay, you can find these listings here as well. There's not a lot of volume for the 7900 XTX, only 84 total listings right now. And if we look at kind of the volume and the price, which is right here, you can see that I mean, as compared to the RTX 4090 we just looked at, it's average volume about 40 plus cards a day. It's like 6 or 7, sometimes 3 cards a day. So very, very low volumes on the 7900 XTX. And then we got the 7900 XT, and actually the price is below MSRP already. Below MSRP already. That's got to give you some indication of how poorly that card is selling right now. And if you look at it, look at all the models that are available. They had a batch of reference coolers that were really bad, they said, that didn't have enough liquid in them. That's what AMD's claiming. How widespread is that? I don't know. You can, of course, get a non-reference cooler that doesn't have that issue for this MSRP anyway. We ended up grabbing the Power Color Hellhound Radeon RX 7900 at $899 just because we need one for the channel. It's got a great cooler on it. It performs really, really well. It doesn't have the problems that some of the reference coolers did. But as you can see, just tons and tons of them in stock. Another kind of 4070 Ti or 4080 issue for AMD. This GPU is also likely very overpriced. And then effectively, we don't have any change for the rest of the market. 6950 XT still in stock at a relatively reasonable price of $699. 6800 XT, $649. It looks like those might actually come back in stock. That's been one of the better price performance GPUs, which again, we'll go over at the end of the video. 6800 is down a little bit to $489. And then the rest of it's kind of the same. 6700, 6750 XT, same pricing for the XT model of the 6600, 6650. And the RX 6600, it was $211 just a couple of days ago, but those models sold out. I don't know. It's possible that those lower end RX 6600s may sell out completely. There are only a few listings on Newegg right now, which I was really surprised at. There's only like 3 or 4 listings left, even the out of stock listings. So could we be seeing the end of that run? Could that foretell a launch of lower end GPUs from AMD? We'll have to see. Let's talk about the big news item, which obviously was the 4070 Ti. What do I think about that card? First of all, reviewers absolutely panned it. This is a TechSpot review. We'll look at some of their numbers. The numbers are all basically the same. Doesn't matter what reviewer you look at. I'll leave a link to this one down in the video description. They do a great job going through a lot of different games. If you want to punch in and see how it performs in different games at different resolutions, I strongly recommend that. But basically, it's a 3090 Ti, slightly better than a 3090 Ti at 1440p, slightly worse than the 3090 Ti at 4K, kind of the opposite of what happened last generation. 7900 XT beats it pretty handily. If you look at ray tracing, again, it's basically a 3090 Ti. You get way better rasterization performance out of those same ray tracing games with ray tracing off with the 7900 XT, but even with upscaling, it's not as competitive with NVIDIA. Previously, we've done polls of you folks out there, and you're saying ray tracing is only important to about 5 to 10% of you out there. So that's for the 5 to 10%. So let's talk a little bit about whether or not I think this is a good GPU, because it's basically a 3090 Ti replacement for $799 when the 3090 Ti did launch at $1,500. They had been available for as low as about $950 kind of around Black Friday until they completely sold out. You can get a used one for about $800 and something. We'll go through used pricing in just a moment. What else are you waiting for? What else are you willing to buy out there? If you're somebody who needs NVIDIA for some kind of productivity, although again, AMD's closing the gap pretty quickly. OBS just released an update that now uses AV1 encoding. So as soon as YouTube and Twitch get their act together and enable AV1 uploads, then AMD GPUs are really going to take over as far as those encoders right now. But if you're somebody who still needs in the next 18 months, something like that, you want a 4K, 100 FPS-ish card to buy, the 4070 Ti does make a little bit of sense in those circumstances. But if you're not a professional who needs an NVIDIA GPU, the 7900 XT, again, another overpriced product. There's just a lot of stagnation at that end of the market. We'll take a look at the best price or performance. Let's talk about launches coming down the pike now. The 4070, 4060 Ti. Unfortunately, the rumors are that these cards are not going to launch until the third quarter of this year. Third quarter of that, that's right, it's almost 9 months away. These could launch as late as August if these rumors are correct. Again, these are rumors. Now, we do know some of the specs on the NVIDIA laptop GPUs because they are launching laptop GPUs at the 4070, 4060, 4050 level right now. They announced all of this at CES. Basically, NVIDIA is saying to the market, listen, we are not going to sell you a 4060 or 4070 at the desktop or even 4050 until you buy up all of our 3060s, 3060 Ti's, and 3070s out there. And we feel comfortable enough to do that because we are effectively a monopoly. And If you don't like it, we don't care. We're just gonna ship those in laptop, in mobile instead. And we'll keep doing that until you buy up all of our cruddy 3000 series GPUs. And they have the power to do that right now. It does suck. On the AMD side, we got a couple of pieces of news, including at CES. AMD did launch its RX 7000 mobile series, including the 7600M. So we know these chips are out there. We know they're in some kind of mass production right now. They're just not announced for desktop. Obviously, right now, all we have is the 7900 XTX and 7900 XT, which are overpriced. We're waiting for the 7800 XT, 7800, 77, etc. on down. But this could portend that AMD may be close to announcing the 7600 XT, 7700 XT, and those GPUs. The other big update was that the 7900 XT and XTX did get a massive efficiency boost through the latest driver release, basically, that came out the day before I was filming this. There have now been some tests of those, and they show while at maximum FPS, the power consumption is the same, which we would expect. At lower FPS, when you peg it to 144 frames, there's been a massive decrease in power, and we've also seen this at the idle state. So they went from 7900 XTX launch driver at 248 watts, basically, all the way down to 158. So that's pretty efficient. Doesn't approach the 4080 levels of efficiency just yet, but that's a massive improvement. Same with the 7900 XT, similar improvement, down 226 down to 169 for 144 FPS when they capped the frame rate there. So that's overall very good. Leads me to believe that we will see some better performance out of the 7900 XT and XTX. And it leads me to believe that AMD definitely rushed this product out the door in order to get it in time for the holidays. They really should have held on to this and probably announced this in the first quarter of this year. Just really wasn't ready for prime time, and I don't know why AMD continues to take 3 steps forward and then 2 steps back and give itself a black eye with this kind of stuff. And then the cooler issues, which DeBauer and others have documented in great detail, which I'm sure you're aware of at this point. They have a bad batch of coolers. AMD, really, you got to get your crap together out there. And honestly, you got to cut prices in order to get some more market share. Gamers need more competition in the space. I was going to mention some Intel news, but it looks like they're not going to announce a new GPU until the middle to later part of 2024 for their Battlemage lineup. So right now, we're kind of stuck with the market the way it is until we get some new launches. A lot of used pricing hasn't moved very much. Now, there was a huge sell-through during Black Friday, during the holidays. A lot of people upgraded their GPU because of the GPU shortage was over. A lot of people bought used, including that they wiped out a lot of this higher end GPU stock here as well. So we actually saw used pricing tick back up in December for that reason. Now it's good to see that in January, it's starting to come back down, including that the 3080 Ti coming down 12% to $790, 3090 coming down to about $815. That is overall good. If we look at older generation GPUs, now I have removed the 900 series. At this point, I feel like they're almost way too old to consider. So we're just looking at Pascal and Turing. Those GPUs kind of a mix, but overall, stuff like the 1070 Ti, those are coming down a little bit. The 1080 Ti's are coming down a little bit. We know that miners right now are holding on to a lot of their GPUs for dear life, but it is possible in the first 3 months, we'll start seeing more and more volume on some of these older GPUs, possibly the RTX 3000 series as well. RX 580 continues to be an amazing deal at $89. Same with the 5600 XT, the RX 5700 and 5700 XT. Now, some of these Radeon cards, especially like the RX 6000 series, very low volumes on eBay. Some of the prices seem out of whack with what you can get new. A lot of more volume on the older, on the RX 580, on the RX 5600 XT, and the 5700 XT. All right, let's go through our best price performance GPUs in January 2023 to start off the year. If you're unfamiliar with how we do this, we basically take the GPU score pegged against an RX 570. So we get the performance, then we take the best new or used price, and then we get a price to performance. So we compare all the GPUs. And there is a link to this spreadsheet down in the video description. These are US based prices. If you want to put in your prices, if you're in a different region, or if you want to put in different assumptions, feel free to jump into the spreadsheet and do so. Let's start off under $200, and obviously most of your options, all of your options are going to be used unless you want to jump up another $20 or $30 and grab that RX 6600. We'll go through that one in just a second. But right now, the Radeon RX 580 down to $89 used. You can't get them new right now for $149. A lot of those GPUs that they were being sold to miners now being repurposed as actual gaming GPUs. In fact, you can find off-brand ones for about $79 or $90 right now over at Newegg. I'll include a couple of listings down in the video description if you want to check them out. 5700 XT, great value card, $185. If you can find a good deal on it, you can get them down as low as about $160. Great performer between that RX 6600 and 6600 XT. 5600 XT, another good one. NVIDIA values right now, yeah, the 1070 looks good, and yes, I know it has a little bit more VRAM, but honestly, I'd probably spend another $10 to get the GTX 1660 Ti 1660 Super for about $145. Yes, only 6 gigabytes of VRAM versus the 8, but at the resolutions you're going to be playing these games at, it's not going to matter anytime in the lifetime of these cards. But look, if you do have about $200, I would probably bump up to the next level. Let's talk about that level at high FPS 1080p gaming right now. We've got the RX 5700 XT that we just talked about, all those good options. And what we basically add to it are the two new options with the 6650 XT, the 6600 XT, if it's still in your market, great. It's sold out of the US, basically replaced by the 6650 XT. Phenomenal value GPU right now, back down to $259. I don't know if it'll go lower than that. I would snap it up at that price. I would probably skip over the 6600 at $229 right now. Again, why not spend the extra $30 and get the much faster GPU instead? That's probably the best value. At 1440p, things get a little bit more complicated. 6650 XT continues to be really good if you want that kind of entry-level 1440p. Remember, a lot of games like World of Warcraft, Fortnite, and others will run 1440p with a 6650 XT just fine. Actually, a lot of frames. It's just those harder to run games where it's going to drag you down a little bit. I like 2080 Supers around $300. Those are good deals. And look at that. We've got our first Intel Arc card because I finally added them to the spreadsheet. I feel comfortable enough to recommend them as long as you don't mind a couple of bugs, mostly with their user interface software right now. I believe they will get those cleaned up, but I am ready to recommend that people go buy them as long as they're willing to fight through a couple of bugs. No longer game breaking the way it was. And then of course, if you're looking for super high FPS, the Radeon RX 6700 or 6750 XT for $354, that is a stellar value. We're talking about 100 plus FPS, 1440p in a whole lot of titles. Jumping into 4K, look at the size of this chart. It's getting a little unmanageable. I think next month I may just break this out at 4K 60 FPS and higher, and then 4K maybe like 90 FPS up to max. But if we take a look at the lower performing cards right now for lower price, 3070 for $499, that one at Walmart I showed you, that's a good deal right now for 4K. Similarly, the Radeon 6800 $489 right now, also a pretty good price, and it outperforms the 3070, which is kind of nice. Higher performance card, 6950 XT out there for $699. That's a great value. 1600 XT, I would just skip right now for $50 more. Get yourself the 6950 XT. And then honestly, the 4070 Ti performs pretty admirably, especially if you want higher FPS. You want that 3090 Ti level of performance for $799, because even right now, the 3090 is only about $800 used. Yes, you get a lot more VRAM with it, all that kind of stuff. That's fine if you need that kind of stuff. 7900 XT and XTX, obviously not great values, especially with the XTX still being effectively scalped right now. 7900 XT is, in my estimation, overpriced right now in terms of its price to performance. I would probably skip this and get a 4070 Ti. It makes a lot more sense to me. And then we take a look at the rest of the field, and the cards get really awful from there. 4090 Ti basically exists if you have all the monies and you just want all the performance. That's the card for you. Okay, let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, listen, if you have $1,000 or more to spend on a GPU, your options are there. Now listen, the 7900 XTX still being scalped right now, so maybe that one's not effectively there. That, to me, would be a more compelling option. But if you've got $1,600, $1,700 and you can buy a 4090 at MSRP or around there from a reputable retailer as opposed to going a scalper, and it looks like the scalpers might be kind of running out of gas. Now look, that's a 4K card. You're not buying that for 1440p. It's CPU bottlenecks everything at 1440p, just about every game. So you're buying that for 4K. If you want something more like 1440p, high FPS, then 7900 XTX or 7900 XT look really good. The 4070 Ti, I think, can be a really good value, especially if you need it for work or other kind of NVIDIA-centric features that AMD doesn't quite yet offer. We're waiting for the 7800, 7800 XT, 7700 XT, and all these lower-end GPUs. What will their performance be? I don't know. It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell when they're coming. You know, if AMD sticks to this thing that they're not going to launch GPUs until effectively NVIDIA is going to launch them, then you could be waiting another 9 months. And I just think those lower end GPUs like the 6650 XT and the 6700 XT just start to make a lot more sense if you don't want to wait. Remember, your enjoyment right now has value. You could always buy these cards 5 years from now for cheap on the used market, right? And would you have saved money, or would you have wasted 5 years of your life without a gaming GPU? So obviously you got to factor that in. At the super budget range, listen, nobody is coming out with a sub $200 brand new GPU anytime soon that has any kind of really good performance out there. 6600 is pretty close. 6650 XT is pretty close, but the used RX 580s are really hard to ignore. 5700 XT, 5600 XT, those are hard to ignore. Even the GTX 1660 Supers and TIs out there, kind of hard to ignore at those much lower price points as miners dump those GPUs. And again, nothing new probably is coming for you for quite some time. So just kind of buckle up, and I would buy one of those GPUs or find another $50 or $100 and jump up to that 6650 XT. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like. This makes a huge difference to the channel, especially this guy right here. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. If you're looking to build a PC in 2023 and you're not sure where to start, we just put on an amazing guide. Check it out. We walk you through how to design and build your own gaming PC, including how to figure out your own budget, what GPU, CPU combo you're looking for so you can get the best. And we'll catch you on the next one.